Avi Meyers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org, where you'll see links to all our interviews. Everything does here on YouTube. Join us on Channel 19 CAN TV in Chicago, Thursday 7:30, Friday 2:30. ECTV in Evanston, Tuesday 10 o'clock, Thursday 8 o'clock, all p.m., and in 35 north and northwest suburbs on channel 1935 or on AT&T Uverse on 99 at 6 p.m. Real big on community policing, caps24.org. Jewish Chicago is coming out for your early voting pleasure. Approximately October 15th. I don't have an exact day yet, but it will be the first week of early voting. At this point in time, I would like to welcome a guest that has been on the show before, a very distinguished individual, and he has himself run for Congress in the past, but not doing so this time, and that is Mark Weiman. Mark, how you doing?
Avi, thanks for having me.
First of all, thank you, and it's a pleasure to have you. And you are actually here today as the representative, I forgot that fancy word we had before.
Campaign manager, maybe?
Campaign manager sounds better, of Rita Zak, who's running for Congress in the 7th District.
That's correct, Avi. And thanks for having me. Before the show started, we were just talking a little bit, and we were talking a little bit about basketball, and we mentioned Purdue basketball. Rita has agreed to stand up and compete for a position of leadership in the 7th Congressional District. And one of the issues that's important to her is our taxation. Purdue University was rumored to be considering moving into Michael Reese Hospital facility to establish a big research park. They ended up going and setting up the research facility, or starting to set up the research facility in Indiana. Taxes are too high in our neighborhood. Another issue we were talking about is how people are attacking each other, back and forth, Republican, Democrat. Both of us agree, Avi and I agree, we're all Americans. One of the things that I got out of, particularly the Republican convention, was the one line by Condoleezza Rice. The Chinese are coming on strong, but nobody can threaten us if we are united. And I think that's something we have to, whether it's the Democratic Party and the Democratic Convention or the Republican Party, Republican Convention, we have to remember that. That is what's important to all of us. Alexander Haig once said, always forward, always upward. Let's not dwell on what's happened in the past. We've got a bright future if we choose to seize it.
He's one of the more unappreciated people, and people don't realize the greatness of his accomplishments and the way he rose up the ranks.
No question. He was a very bad student. I shouldn't say that. He was in the bottom of his class at West Point. But gosh, when that gentleman would get up in front and have to make a speech or have to take decisive action, he's the man you wanted to show up.
And by the way, a true friend of Israel.
Always, always. He respected Israel. I remember back in 1967, he stood up, but even more than then, in the raid at the Osirak reactor, and you can brief me off, you might know the date better, but it was a long time ago.
81 or 82.
81 or 82, and I believe it was the Reagan administration.
Yep.
And several members of the Reagan administration condemned the action that was taken by the Israelis taking out the reactor in Iraq. I'll never forget Alexander Haig stood up, and he wasn't the most powerful member of the cabinet, and he said, there will come a time when we will be so appreciative of what the Israelis did today, and I will always respect him for that.
No, I do remember that. I do remember that very well. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I think Jack Anderson was still writing in those days, and I do believe that he said that that actually the Reagan administration was, and the military were fully behind Israel's effort, but needed to blast them publicly, and in return, basically Israel got extra aid.
Okay.
Which was, because Israel took the heat and America got to condemn them, so America didn't get the black eye. So in return for Israel's black eye, they got some goodies at least. But the fact of the matter is what they did for the security of generations in that area. And imagine today if Syria actually would have nuclear weapons with what's going on right now. And well, you're the one on the stump, for Rita Zak, of course. But the fact is, what's happening in Iran is such an amazing existential threat. People don't realize the depth of that threat. One bomb over in Israel, and boom, everything's gone.
Avi, you are preaching to the converted. But along those lines, could I just say a little bit about Rita?
Please, I want you to tell everybody about Rita. That's why you're here.
We're representing Rita. Rita was born in Israel. She emigrated to the States when she was 5 years old, studied here, and went back to Israel when she was 18. And she was in Israel when some very formative events occurred, formative in terms of Rita, and one of which was the boats of Cherbourg. Are you familiar with that, Avi?
No, I actually am not.
In the boats of Cherbourg, the Israelis had made a deal with a foreign country for delivery of patrol boats. Much pressure was brought upon the leaders of the foreign country not to give the patrol boats to the Israelis. The Israelis infiltrated into Cherbourg, and in the middle of the night, they sailed the patrol boats out of Cherbourg. And by the time the foreign country knew that the patrol boats were missing, they were on the high seas. They considered taking an interceptive action to stop the patrol boats from being taken to Israel, but by that time, Israel air power was in effect, and the boats sailed into Haifa.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was when Rita was a young kid when this happened.
Wow. Didn't know the story at all.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the reasons I brought it up too, Avi, I know you're very friendly with Ari Friedman,
yes, as a matter of fact, he was here earlier today, by the way.
and I think he would enjoy that story also.
He definitely would. I'll make sure that I send him the link for the
That's very good.
for the interview. Let's talk about the boundaries of the district.
Avi, the boundaries have just recently been gerrymandered, but fundamentally they're the same from 2010.
Well, this is Illinois. You didn't expect anything different.
I know. And if I could bring out my engineering textbook, I'll try and figure out the formulas that were applied, if any were.
None.
All right. Roughly, it goes to North Avenue on the north, south to about Roosevelt Road, but it's like the shape of an animal, so it's not straight lines, north or south. So like various very interesting neighborhoods are included in the congressional district, like Chinatown and the Loop and Gold Coast, and a little bit, some areas going into the Lincoln Park area are included. Then it goes due west through a neighborhood called Lawndale, and we were talking a little bit of basketball before. We were talking about Proviso East.
Right.
Maywood is, a little bit of Maywood's included, Oak Park is included, and this is the neighborhood that Rita has stood to compete for a position of leadership, and she is honored to compete for the position of leading fellow American citizens.
Oh, that sounds good. I will say that without mentioning his name, I actually spoke at the same place the incumbent spoke, and I've heard a lot of political speeches. I've used a lot of Q-tips in my life, and I very rarely have ever heard anybody use so many words to say so little as the incumbent, and not to mention the fact that he is definitely not a friend of the Jewish people in Israel. So along those lines, Jewish Chicago definitely gives our endorsement this year to Rita Zak.
Thank you, Avi. That's appreciated.
That's my pleasure, and listen, it's the right thing to do. Absolutely. She's a very capable individual, and we're sorry that she had a last-minute problem, couldn't make it today, but I'm glad you were able to come.
My pleasure.
And I want to wish you all the luck in the campaign. Do you have a website?
Yes, we do. Rita Zak, RITAZAK, for Congress 2012. And it's a two-page website that lays out principles that are very important to Rita. And I know if you have a chance to read them, if you have any questions, there's a phone number you can get in touch with us. We'll be happy to talk with you.
Rita Zak, for Congress, 7th Congressional District, State of Illinois. I want to thank you very much, Mark Weiman, for being here, and I want to wish
Avi,
you and Rita all the best of luck in the campaign. All the best.
Oh, very good. Thanks, Sonny.